Welcome to Punish for Protecting. This episode is going to be what we're calling a mass exposing. Now, for the sake of time, we can only fit a certain amount of people into episodes. We are only given 30-minute intervals for our episodes, but we are allotted specials that they do allot for more time. So we're doing this actually live on Facebook as well. And to let anybody know that still would like to participate in this, you can scroll down my page on Facebook and you can find the link listed under the status that talks about doing a mass exposing. I'm really proud of parents that are coming out of the woodwork and that are showing their faces and exposing these diabolical courts in our nation. Unfortunately, this is the measure that we now have to currently take. Many parents have been so harmed by this system, and this is something that the nation needs to be made very aware of, that this is actually happening. We've discussed this over and over again, that we have all failed as a nation because we just assumed, as we allowed this atrocity to continue in our country, that anybody that lost their children or didn't have access to their children, there must be something wrong with them. I believe that I have done a fairly decent job of proving that to be insanely wrong. It is so wrong because parents that are not suitable because they are domestic violent perpetrators that will not get help, or they are doing drugs, or they are genuinely alienating an innocent parent from their children for whatever reason, and not because of safety. I'm talking about the ones that are doing it just to be spiteful. They're not the parents that the children are being safeguarded from. They're the parents that have full and sole custody many times until you fight for your life, basically, to get your children back. So my job is to continue to expose these courts, these judges, these counties, these states, and these I can't say protective. That word in the CPS realm cannot come out of my mouth. It is not protective. And so I call it what it is: child predator services. Child predator services across our entire nation is a diabolical venue. Children are being killed. Children are committing suicide. Parents are committing suicide. Some are living a slow death. How is it that we have allowed this for so long in our country? How is it that we've allowed this silent Holocaust to continue in our country? It has to be exposed. There is no word fear in what we're doing. I can't work with you. I can sympathize and empathize with you, but I cannot work with you if you have fear. Fear is not anything that we can even think about at this point in time. We are now warriors. We are now in a war, and we cannot stop until our country is saved, until our children are saved, and until our family unit is saved. I'm going to start now with Charlene. She is actually a very strong advocate. I'm very proud of her work, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her story as we go through these people and their stories about their children. Charlene, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Fran. Hi, everybody. My name is Charlene Angelastro. I'm from Camden County, New Jersey. I have been a foster and adopted parent for 15 years on record for licensing. Off and on, only for family, friends, people that I know as sort of an umbrella. And why do I need to be an umbrella with the system? Because the system abuses the kids, and people know it, and I get the phone calls first. Mm-hmm. Please get my child. And I do. Mm-hmm. I work with families. I don't like it if the kids have to go into an office or into McDonald land to meet their parents. I'm sorry. The parents come to my home. We work together. We do holidays together. We do everything. We work with the parent themselves to everything. You name it. If anybody is on my Facebook, go look at my pictures. Parents are with their kids, and that's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Family first.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that's not what happens. I cannot express this enough. The heartache and the sorrow that I have seen and gone through myself in the last 15 years is ridiculous. All of you are not crazy. You are all correct. You are all 100% correct. Please don't give up your fight. Please stand up for your child. And if anything, have your child moved to a family member if your child is in the system. You have that right. Besides getting your child back immediately, at least get that child in with a family member while you're working on the system to overcome everything that you've worked for with your child. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlene. And Charlene is advocating, as you just heard, very strongly in the state of New Jersey, but she does reach out to other states because she does have an incredible amount of background in what she's doing to fight for families. Thank you again, Charlene. I appreciate all you're doing.
From the inside out, Fran. Inside out.
That's right. That's right. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go to Stephen Ball. Stephen is actually a talk show host as well. And Stephen, if you can introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and why you're involved in what you're doing. And
well, thank you very much. My name is Steve Ball, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity and use your platform and come here and talk to your listeners today. I want to say that first.
Well, we really appreciate having you, Steve. I really, really appreciate having you and all that you do as well. Very impressed with your work.
Hey, thank you. I work with Restoring Families Internet Radio, and I have my own platform called Custody Wars. Boy, my story is not too unique from many, and I'm going to say this, and not to upset any women, but my story is not too unique from many men that are involved in this system. Just terrible court circus, family court circus that we have. My story starts Puyallup High School. I was living with a young lady and her family, and we had a child together. A restraining order ensued, which was basically a fast track to custody. I was between my junior and senior years at Puyallup High School in 1999, 2000. And, there was nothing I was going to be able to tell that judge to not issue that protection order. Not a word.
Mm-hmm.
I will send you the transcripts later. That was a defining moment in my life, right around July of 2000 when that happened. The judge, because of the laws, now this is some things that we need to look at, and maybe they have, because of the laws of the way they were, it was my understanding that I couldn't sign a birth certificate. Later down the road, that ended up screwing me because there was no paternity or the birth certificate wasn't signed by me.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost out. When the restraining order, when the judge issued the restraining order, he included additional language. I was restrained from interfering with the physical or legal custody of the child for the term of a year. Now, there were some accusations that I violated this order. I was not found guilty on 5 occasions. Ultimately, this restraining order became a permanent restraining order. One judge would hand it off to the next judge, who would hand it off to the next judge, and so on and so forth. So there was no judicial consistency with this case. There was no judicial officer saying, well, young lady, he does have a right to his child. When are we going to make that happen? The judges were coming on me saying, well, if you want to see your child, you will go see a facilitator, hire a lawyer, so on and so forth. I actually have rights here.
That's right.
And those rights were overlooked and violated and disparaged in the whole 9 yards. Later down the road, we did get Commissioner Gilman, I think it was Commissioner Gilman, to say, okay, here's the deal. We're going to drop this restraining order. We're going to issue a temporary order in the parenting plan, and we're going to get visitation starting. Great. This was roughly from 2000 to 2008 now. 2008, we engaged in 3 visits with my child with a supervised visitation specialist. Her name was Jan, the late Jan Fenton. She did pass away, which ended up hurting my case. Wasn't my fault. Nothing I could do. The woman, very nice woman, very spirit-filled woman, but she did have a heart attack and she passed away. I was unable to obtain her records despite my best efforts. Oh. But she had a team of lawyers protecting her beyond the grave, and there was nothing I could do to get those records. Now, in my case, there was a violent assault that occurred with my child. CPS agent Billy Reedleski out of Pierce County Superior Court, or Pierce County Superior Office, she advised me to not engage in any more visits with my child, as my child had been hurt by a man. I don't need to go into details. I think you guys all understand. So my child was hurt by a man, and I was following the, if you will, the order of a CPS agent who I believed, as having served in law enforcement myself as a juvenile detention officer, I believed that she was on the case. She was well-rounded with everything that was going on. She told me not to engage. Later, did I find out that we end up taking this order from CPS, and the guardian ad litem twists it into an abandonment. Well, it was an over-the-phone order. It's not like they wrote it down, but she did say, the child's been traumatized. You're kind of new in the picture. Why don't you just stay back? We'll notify you when it's time to re-engage, this kind of thing. I was left with the impression that they were going to remove the child from the mother based on some things that had happened. Continuing pitfalls. Now, we have a guardian ad litem that I petitioned for the GAL. I ended up paying the GAL fees. Well, I mean, the other party did too, but very reluctantly and hesitantly, and it was a struggle. So I ended up having to do an ex parte court, and I don't remember. I think it could have been Commissioner Dickey, Pierce County Superior Court. She finally grants me the order for the GAL. The GAL comes on board and just twists this case every which way from Sunday, telling my daughter I don't have any military experience, my law enforcement career is a lie. The list goes on. So now we've got Billy Reedleski working in tandem with Frances Cavetter out of King County. She's a guardian ad litem. And I think what they did was to protect the system, because I had a lawsuit based on 3 full CAID intakes that my child had endured. And it's very clear in the report where it says this is the child's 3rd visit at CIID in Tacoma, Washington. All of the suspects have been men that mom has dated. Now the CIID is a division of Child Protection Services, and they dropped the ball. We brought all this to the Pierce County Superior Court. I was made to look like I abandoned my child. You name it. It was disgusting. So in tandem, I have also been working with families myself, learning the laws, taking myself to law libraries, taking myself to workshops, utilizing my experience as a juvenile detention officer, as a municipal park ranger, working at a local college as a campus officer, and then a plethora of security experience in there. Utilizing that experience to help families understand the dynamic in the courtroom, understand the language that they should be using, understand the processes that the court takes, understanding how social services comes about and how they're supposed to operate. And let me tell you, for some people, they're very simple. People are simple, and they don't understand step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, all they understand is, where the hell is my child?
Right.
That's what they want to get to.
Right.
And so you say, well, we can't engage with services right now because you have to have a psych evaluation. But I'm not crazy. I just want to see my kid. I'm going crazy without seeing my kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Believe me, we understand. We've got to get this psych eval done. And the downside to these psych evals, and I've noticed this in my experience, and I've had to take a couple myself. I think everybody in this interview has. Look, when you're stressed out, when you're job, you feel like your job's always at stake. You feel like your next move is at stake.
Yep.
You're not going to really show a counselor who you really are with all this stress and anxiety and question and turmoil in your spirit when you're having a sit down with somebody who's going to decide the turnout of your case.
That's right.
You know, it's absolutely ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
And then you look at these judges and you say, you know, like in my case, how is it that you can say I abandoned my child when every turn of the gate, the court has come up with an excuse to grant her an order? She was never abused, at least in my opinion. Look, I was never arrested. I was never charged. I was never convicted of committing any act of domestic violence or any violent crime for that matter.
Right.
Even as a juvenile, yes, I did get in trouble. I was a stupid kid. I trespassed. You know, I got in trouble at the mall once. I was a stupid kid. But I think we all are allowed to be stupid at teenage level once or twice.
Right.
Going into adult level, I went into security. No DUIs. No violent drug history. Nothing.
Right.
For a judge to continue these orders and to continue to separate me from my child, who is now 18 and aged out, it is beyond abhorrent.
Yes.
So awareness is key. Bringing people to the front and saying, look, the judges that you're voting for are doing this. The judges that you're voting for are, in fact, lining their pockets with Title 4D money, 4B money, and 4E money. This is not a joke. It's time for people to be aware of what the Safe Family Children's Act says, you know, that Hillary Clinton helped frame. It's time to be aware of what has happened
and what she's
done.
Look,
when you've got parents who face off with social services, when CPS, and it's very evident to me, when CPS makes a determination to remove your child, they stop at nothing. They have an unlimited resource, and we don't. You know, many of us make between $30,000 and $60,000 a year, and when this happens, we're depleted fast. 3 to 6 months, we're depleted. The state can hammer on for years, and there's no oversight. There's nobody policing the police, so to speak.
No, they're policing themselves.
Well, that's a very brief overview of my case, and again, I point my finger at Pierce County Superior Court Commissioner Harmon, Gilman. I point my finger at Commissioner Pro Tem Automash. I point my finger at Billy Reed-Leesky, and I point my finger at Francis Kvetter as a guardian ad litem / attorney in King County, Pearson, King County, Washington State. These guys are, I mean, you wouldn't believe me, but I'm telling you, these guys have their own little friends club, so to speak.
Yep.
And yes, and I promise all of you guys, as a prior oath keeper, they defend themselves. They really, really do defend themselves. They've got like a whole private establishment built into the public law system. And that includes psychologists, that includes reunification counselors, that includes professional supervised visitation specialists, that includes guardian ad litems and various lawyers in Pearson, King County. And yes, they do defend themselves. It's very difficult to get an attorney to go in there and buck that system, despite how correct his client may or may not be. You're not going to buck that system. Nobody's going to challenge it.
Well, we are challenging it, Steve. We are not only challenging it, we are going to continuously, forcefully, and fearlessly and fiercely not only challenge it, but we will overturn the whole thing. And one of the best ways of doing it is exposing them, and that's exactly what we're doing. And
I really applaud you for your words earlier in this broadcast. You said, you know what, we are warriors. We are fearlessly speaking out.
Yep.
And that's something that more parents need to understand. When you get these gag orders and this, that, and the other, half of this crap is unconstitutional.
Absolutely.
Don't even consider obeying it, because they are hiding when they do that.
That's
right. They are hiding the truth. They are, in my opinion, they are hiding something they don't want out.
Exactly.
They're not protecting the child. They are protecting themselves, using the child as a shield, and that is shameful upon them.
It is
So if you have a
disgusting.
truth to tell your truth.
Yep, and the truth sets you free. Bottom line, the truth shall set you
Mm-hmm.
free, and there's no getting around that. And Steve, I talked to you at length several months ago, and you know that my interviews are equal. They're non-gender. They're not no gender, of course, but they're non-gender. Mothers and fathers, we stand with both. We tell the stories as they are. I mean, we make sure that these stories are told, that the truth is told. Mothers and fathers were shocked that mothers were being abused just like dads were. But I I have some groups that, completely disparage all fathers or vice versa, and I don't allow that on my show at all. Because both sides are being abused, and I noticed that there's New York is really anti-mom, believe it or not. When there's other states that are completely anti-father. I don't think they really care.
There's a saying in Washington State, and again, forgive me, but I will spill it. If you were talking amongst men, they might say, "Yeah, well, this state starts with W." Okay.
Yeah.
That's just. And it's sad to have to say that. It's very sad. But I want to let your listeners know, I help women is just as equally as I help men. Okay, if you look at my groups, it's really 50-50. I might even have more women in my groups than there actually are men.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's something here that we could talk about briefly, and then I'll let I don't want to take all your time here, but men need to come out of their shells and start talking.
Yes.
Something I notice in women can do that easily. It seems to me that it's easier for women to get in groups and start talking about the issues that affect them. Men have a problem leaving the Xbox or the tool shed or whatever it is that's stopping the men from coming out. It's not that, you guys are seeing lots of men. You guys are seeing lots of the same men talking over and over and over again, trying to get a larger portion of the voting populace to talk about what's really going on. I don't know if that's a security thing that our fathers were supposed to have built into us. Don't talk about your issues. Don't talk about your feelings. Don't talk about. I don't know what it is, but we need more men discussing what's happening so that our nation's young men and women don't end up in the same situation.
That's right. Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. Well, thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate you speaking on our show today and telling your story and helping America, and also being that voice to those that aren't speaking out. We do appreciate you very much. Thank you.
I appreciate everything that you're doing on your end and awareness, and your campaign for awareness and your campaign for change. Man, you're kicking butt over there, and you know what? There's a lot of people that are backing you, and I am too.
Thank you. So, thank you so much. I appreciate that very much. Right. Thank you, Steve.
All right. God bless you, and you have yourself a great day.
God bless you too. Thank you. Eva, I'm going to go to you now and tell them what state you're in, as well as the court and so on and so forth.
So I'm in New Hampshire. I am in actually the newly implemented complex case docket in New Hampshire. It is for lack of a better way, it's an experiment by the state to put more difficult cases and more intricate cases on a specific docket and have one particular judge overseeing all of that. It was instituted and implemented in June of 2015. So my case was one of the first cases that landed on it with no reasoning, and actually contrary to what the purpose of the docket is supposed to be. It's supposed to deal with intricate cases and allow for alternative dispute resolutions, to be creative in how it handles situations, to do more in-depth counseling with parties and such, which I had at the time a domestic violence order, so it would not even enable us to take advantage of any of the theories that this complex case docket is supposed to have. My relationship with my partner ended in 2014 in September. Shortly after that, a domestic violence order was put in place. It was continually renewed up until the spring of this year, so almost 2.5 years. And that was with about 3 or 4 different extensions by the court. So it went under review quite a few times, and it was continually found that it was appropriate. One of the extensions included because my partner, after almost a year, was still controlling my oldest son, who is not his biological child's, Xbox account. So he could see every time we were on TV. He could see what we were watching on our TV, when we were watching it. So he could track where we were, what we were doing. And the judge even called it creepy.
Yeah, that is creepy. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, things like that. And he will do anything to find out where I am and what I'm doing. And he will use my youngest son, who is our biological shared child, together. Earlier this year, we have to communicate through a program of OFW. It's an online portal that we have to communicate through. It tracks, when people log in, what you're doing on there, so that nobody can wiggle out of notifications or say that they didn't see something or didn't know something. And so I communicated to him that Xander wasn't going to be attending the last couple of days of school, knowing that the snowstorms had extended the school year and we had family vacation plans. And sure enough, thank God the school was aware. I had made them aware that chances are he's probably going to be trying to seek information about where we are and what we're doing. Please don't share it. And like clockwork, 3 days into our vacation, he's sending an email to the teacher playing, poor father, he wasn't aware that Xander wasn't going to be attending school, and could she confirm? And the reason why he thinks that he's not attending school is because he mentioned he's in Texas. So just baiting the teacher for information. And this is what this guy does all the time. So I've been in 6 court venues because the original domestic violence case was not handled appropriately. And instead of protecting me financially, it did nothing about the financial abuse. So after a 1.5 years of a court case for over $75,000 that he stole from me, 30 of it from a vehicle that he withheld for 2 years until the Superior Court judge finally forced him to turn it over to me, which in November of last year, when he turned it over to me, it was worth about $12,000 and couldn't even pass a safety inspection because he ran it into the ground. And then another $45,000 that he essentially stole off of my home equity line of credit to pay bills and such that he never returned to me. Within a day before a hearing was going to take place for periodic payments, to force him to make payments, and to deal with motions regarding fraud, perjury, and false statements to the court, he filed for bankruptcy. And so in July of this year, the bankruptcy court basically dismissed his case. I now have a federal appeal based upon their dismissal. I have a pending Supreme Court, New Hampshire Supreme Court case regarding the judge in the parenting case because, and I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this or not, but I'm holding up some of the documents that demonstrate this judge. So separate case, separate domestic violence case from the parenting case because we were not married. Separate court, separate judge found him guilty of the domestic violence. This judge on the complex case docket, Judge Foley, even said that, it's not his place to re-examine a previously adjudicated matter, that he can't.
That's right.
That it's already been decided
by law.
court.
By law, right? But they did it anyway in my case, but go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So he turned around and even after saying that he can't examine evidence again, he turned around in the final orders and basically said that I wasn't credible, that because the guardian ad litem wasn't investigating the domestic violence, my oldest son wanted to report it, wanted to have time in court to say what happened. We were victims of being kicked out of our house in the middle of the night. My now 13-year-old being woken up at 10, 11 o'clock at night by my ex, being told you're just as much of an effing liar as your mother. Get out of this house. If you don't take him with you, if you don't leave this house now, I'm calling the police and I'll have you both removed.
I'm sorry.
All within, when he's in his fits of rage. And the irony is, it's a house I own. It's my house. His name was never on it. It wasn't even his house, but this is the power and control that he would have. The judge found that by me even asking to have Nicholas interviewed, that he saw me as a mother that would do anything to win at any cost. In fact, use her own child to win.
And this is one of the tactics that they use nationally, actually, exactly what you're talking about. It's actually, Barry Goldstein calls it abuse by proxy, domestic violence by proxy. And it's done through the courts. And instead of taking the genuine evidence, which you just reiterated, and so on and so forth, they actually use it against you in a court of law. It's insane. It's utterly crazy.
Yep. So, he used that I had lack of credibility because of that. Never any finding in the previous adjudicated matter of me having perpetrated any abuse on him. Documented several times that I did beg him not to leave, which we all know any domestic violence person does when they're found, when they're in those types of situations. And we often beg our batterers not to leave us in those scenarios. And so this Judge Foley decided that because of those circumstances, I actually perpetrated physical abuse against him.
See, now, and all the red flags, because I know this oh so well, all the red flags that are going off right now for me, listening to this, because I just know it so well, is that number one, the judge does not have domestic violence training. The judge has just crossed lanes by going from being a judge, now he's a psychotherapist, a psychologist, and, and absolutely and utterly wrong on every level for him to even go there, on any level to go there and say what he said. And anybody that does understand domestic violence, until you go through the whole healing process and you're away from that person long enough, you start to really see how badly it really was. It takes some time.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
And a lot of mothers are afraid of losing their children to the domestic violence perpetrators, so they rather stay with them and take the abuse than the abuse of losing their children or the children being further abused without them to be able to oversee what the perpetrator's doing.
Absolutely. So. And even in the domestic violence case, one of his witnesses tried lying for him on the stand, saying that I never gave any indication of domestic abuse whatsoever. And under cross-examination, she recanted her testimony because she was on the verge of being recommended for perjury charges to be brought up against her. And she changed her story and admitted that on at least one occasion, she was going to call DCYF on him and report him for abuse to the two children. And it was only because I begged her not to that she decided not to report him. So funny that you say that about the judges, Fran. So in this order, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm going to kind of put it up.
If you hold it up a little bit more, just hold it up a tiny bit more forward.
You see that?
Because we got a pretty clear view there.
Right about here where my finger is, this is the judge saying, from years of hearing in this area and listening to experts testify, I find that not all acts of domestic violence are committed by batterers.
Wow.
This was his justification for that Xander should be with his father without any supervision.
Let's hold it right there for a second, though, because I mean, if you watch the whole episode that I have with Barry Goldstein, he explicitly goes into that very ignorant statement of that ignorant judge. Okay, yep. But he's not just ignorant. I mean, even Barry talks about this. Common sense alone, without any social scientific research, without even knowing or having any training at all. Okay. You don't even have to have a 12th grade education to know that is one of the most ignorant statements I've ever heard. But where are your children right now? Or where is your son right now? I'm sorry.
So 1 week on, 1 week off.
Okay, so it
And,
is 1 week and 1 week. Okay.
When he is with his father will only let me talk to him on Tuesday and Thursday nights for a couple of minutes. He's 5 years old. And up until that point, when these new orders went into place, I was his primary caregiver. He had never spent more than a night or two away from me in his 4.5 years prior to that.
Yep.
And certainly not talking to me. And now he will go anywhere from 5 to 6 days, depending on if there's a holiday on a Monday, without any contact with me whatsoever. Yeah. He's not allowed to talk to me. He's not allowed to interact with me. And so it's pretty hard.
Well, I mean, even in a healthy family, when there's a healthy mom and dad, and sometimes people may not like what I'm saying, but I always think that the child should stay in one home, because even as an adult, do you want to bounce back and forth every other week? So think about how hard that is in children. And when there are healthy parents, they can work that out where the child or children are in, let me just hold on a second. I don't know why I'm having a mute issue here. Okay, while the child is in one home where they can work it out, because they are both healthy parents, and even though the relationship didn't work out, they can at least have the child stable in one place where a child should be, and I do understand like the pain that you're going through, and it's just not right. It's just not right.
So I recently had the New Hampshire Supreme Court come back and issue their orders affirming this judge's orders. They flat out misrepresented my argument, which I've now filed a motion for reconsideration, and used that as a basis for denying my request. They flat out refused to even address the biased and sexist and discriminatory remarks that the judge made about me, just wouldn't even address it, which by New Hampshire state law, they have to. They're obligated to. As you can see right here on this page, and I'm going to just put it up closely right there. I don't know if you can see that, but right here, the judge even says it's his inference that I basically want to keep Xander behind his mother's apron. I don't know on what planet, but I mean, he just took women's rights back. I don't know how many decades in that statement. I certainly can state with absolute conviction that I can guarantee you he wouldn't be making a statement about my perpetrator's apron, and that he's keeping him behind an apron.
Or what about he may be keeping him behind a wife beater t-shirt.
Of this, that I would keep him tucked behind my apron, that he believes that my environment would be too, that I constructed an overly protective home environment which threatens Xander's opportunity to grow, develop, and learn as a child. Now, mind you, he's saying this about me. My oldest son, who is 13 years old, has life-threatening peanut, tree nut allergies. He has various environmental allergies that at times can become life-threatening for him through asthmatic distress and other flares. That child is 13 years old. He is a straight-A student in a Catholic school. Now, I'm not Catholic. It just happens to be that I chose to put him into this school system because it was a very good school system for him. He maintains straight A's while playing 3 sports. He plays on both 2 basketball teams and 2 baseball teams during those seasons, and he is the senior patrol leader for his Boy Scout troop. He just came back this summer from the Rocky Mountain High Adventure Boy Scout camp, where he hiked to 12,000 feet elevation, spent a night there, hiked back down, did rock propelling at a grade of I think it's 15.9 or 5.9 grade. It was one of the highest grades that you can even do at rock propelling. He was only one of 3 out of all the boys that were there that week that even accomplished it. Spent 2 days whitewater rafting up to Class 4 rapids on the Arkansas River while he was there. Certainly, I wouldn't depict that as a restricting environment.
No, and the thing is, how old is Xander? How old is he again? I know you said it, but I want to say it again for the sake of...
5 years old.
Okay, so, I mean, not for nothing, okay? But this judge needs his ass kicked, okay? He's a moron. He's a complete and utter moron, and I'm saying it, so don't worry about it. I'm saying it. And I'll tell him if I have to hopefully meet him one day. Okay? This is a 5-year-old little child, and you're supposed to be protecting them and keeping your eye on them at that age. And any age, even under the age of 18. Because they're obviously not developed yet, and they're not ready to go out into the world yet. That's why God gave them parents in the first place. So, there's a word in Italian, jidrul. Look it up. That's what he is. Ay, ay, ay. All right.
So to flash forward now, earlier this summer in July, my perpetrator thought that he was done with the last of the cases, which he hasn't even begun. I'm getting ready to file a personal injury lawsuit for the slander and various other things that the guardian ad litem helped him with and such. But so he thought he was done. Within days of the last order being issued in one of the cases, he started taking my 5-year-old and sending him back to me on transition day, having fed him Honey Nut Cheerios. Now, my oldest child has life-threatening peanut and tree nut allergies.
Right, I understand.
At 2.5 years old, I almost lost him. I spent 15 minutes with a 911 operator in my ear saying, "Mom, you're doing a great job. Keep screaming in his face so he doesn't fall asleep."
Right, yeah.
While I waited for EMT operators to flood my house and take him. He has such a severe allergy that even contact, so he never swallowed the piece of peanut butter pie that caused the anaphylaxis.
Okay, that's all it takes.
At 2.5 years old, he knew something was wrong, and he held it on the back of his tongue.
Wow.
Until I told him he could spit it out.
Wow.
And when he spit it out, he was suffocating from the inside out. Basically, his airway had closed, and he was jamming his fist in. Anywhere where he got saliva on his hand, blew uncontrollably. Excuse me.
It's okay. It's okay.
And wherever the saliva didn't touch, it stayed completely normal. So we know that even with contact, he will go into severe swelling. Freaky things like birch tree. He's allergic to a birch tree. If he touches the bark of a birch tree with his bare hand, his hand will swell.
Yeah.
So he is severe contact. And my perpetrator knows this. He lived in our house for 6 years. He started sending Xander home, eating it, knowing that it can stay in your saliva for hours, knowing that if he was to come in contact with Nicholas, it could cause a reaction. Now, Xander is 5 years old. My oldest son is 13 years old. What do you think two brothers want to do when they haven't seen each other for 7 days or really had any contact with each other? Yeah. They love to have tickle fights, wrestle around.
Yeah.
So the second time he did this, a few weeks later, after I had already told him on the first one to cease and desist, we were sitting on the couch, and I had already told Xander, no tickle fights, no hugging, no kissing tonight. When you wake up in the morning, you can do all that you want, but not tonight. It's not safe for Nicholas. So, of course, he wants to test his brother. He wants to tease him. So he's taking his fingers and he's playing with Nick's hair and stuff, and have to tell him, Xander, please stop. We're not going to do that. We're just going to watch a movie tonight. Next thing I know, I'm turning around as I went to leave the living room, and Xander, being a typical 5-year-old, wanting to play the game of, see what he can get away with, takes and sticks his finger in his mouth to do a wet willy and tries to stick it in Nicholas's ear. It happened 3 times. of us continually catching Xander's hand. On the third time, Xander became so upset and distraught, screaming and yelling, having a total meltdown, saying, you know, Mommy, I didn't know. I didn't know. It's not my fault. Daddy doesn't tell me when I'm coming home. Me having to reassure my 5-year-old that this is in no way your fault. Nobody is blaming you for this.
Mm-hmm.
That was his first day of kindergarten that day. And that was Nick's first day of 8th grade. That's how we spent our night.
Yeah.
Instead of being happy about the day and talking about all the new adventures that they're having, we spent it with my 13-year-old being totally terrified.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That even after this person has been taken out of our home,
Yep. Yep.
he can still get to us.
That's right. I understand that 100%. I understand that 100%.
And that's exactly what the point was that he was trying to do. So now we are back in another DV hearing. It's been continued twice since September. I go back to court next week. He flat out lied to the court, which, I mean, there's tons of stuff that's going to be coming out of Tuesday, and because of fear of what, you know, might get posted and seen, I don't want to tip my hat too much, but he's perjured himself repeatedly, basically telling the judge that Nicholas doesn't have any nut allergies, that he only had a peanut allergy, and that when he was living there, the peanut allergy was actually going down.
Does he not know? Does he not know? Hold on a
curious-
second. Does he not know that nut and peanut are the same thing, or does he need me to come there and give him a lesson on, you know, that? I don't know.
So actually, so he does know very
My
well the
God.
distinctions. Peanut is a little bit different than tree nut. They are two different classifications. They're okay, and but there is documentation that shows that he knows fully well what this will do to him. That he's lying about what he's saying to the judge. So hopefully Tuesday that's going to come out. But here we are with no temporary orders in place. This is a completely different judge. Family court is still in New Hampshire.
Wow.
Now letting this drag on for months with no protection for my children whatsoever.
Well, we wish you the very best on that date, and also recommend that you get on our other page, which is the National Punish for Protecting National, and this is for everyone, advocacy page, because you can find advocates in your area, and also know to get on our public meetings so that we can have people there to help you and court watch and so on and so forth. So I highly encourage you to do that. Thank you so much for your story. I am going to go to Elizabeth Ann Byler now. Let me just unmute you. Thank you again,
Thank you,
Ava.
Fran.
Thank you. Elizabeth, can you tell everybody where you are, what state?
So I live in Mercer County, Pennsylvania. My case is not through Mercer County. It is in Fayette County, Pennsylvania, which would be Uniontown, PA. My case is very heartbreaking and it's huge. So it's a medical kidnap / intentional kidnap that's years and years old being covered up.
Well, not anymore.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was victimized when I was in a motorcycle accident. Now, mind you, I grew up as an Amish child, so I really didn't know anything about foster care, the courts, or anything like this. So, therefore, when I was in my accident and somebody came forward to pretend she was my friend and to help me, because I had 30 broken bones and a ruptured spleen, 30 broken bones in my left leg and a ruptured spleen, was told I would never walk again and there was a chance that I would die. How she found out happened, I have no idea. But she was at the hospital before any of my family member even knew anything about it because I was unconscious. Nobody could get a hold of anybody. She shows up at the hospital 2 days after my accident. Now, I don't remember any of it, but the nurse told me because I woke up and there was a picture beside my bed that I knew should not have been there. It was a picture of me and my children from weeks prior to that. And I asked the nurse, I said, well, where did that come from? And she said, you don't remember? You know, I don't know if I'm allowed to say names or not because I am gagged at this point. The gag order was lifted under the grounds that I used no identifying information or any pictures of my children. So
hold on a second. Who are you not allowed to identify? The perpetrators that are abusing you and your family in Pennsylvania?
They're the ones that put the gag order on, but I'm not allowed to talk about my children. I'm not allowed to put pictures up of my children, any identifying information of my children. So
okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, I want you to be careful. Obviously, I want you to be careful because we want you out here in the world so that you can fight to do what you have to do to get your children as safe as possible with you and so on and so forth. I mean, I don't know your whole story yet, like I said, but I am livid when I hear this right now because I am sick and tired of our First Amendment rights being violated by these crazy judges, okay? It angers me to no end that your constitutional rights are being violated, that you're being gagged, which is, I don't know if you heard Stephen Ball, he just got done talking about it. This is a complete and direct violation. Now you have every legal right to continue to talk about your children, to show your children, okay, to show pictures of your children, but I do want you to be careful. So we're going to use wisdom, but I am going to make it very clear, and I hope this judge will watch this. If not, I will send him a copy. You are violating this woman's rights by placing a gag order, and these are her children given to her by God, not by you. Go ahead and tell your story. I just had to add that in there. Yes, they are illegal. Yes, they are illegal.
I had actually called the FBI and I got a hold of a bunch of different people about it. FBI says, "Oh, we don't get involved with that. CPS is involved." Oh, yeah, whatever.
FBI is a bunch of liars, but go ahead. They're not doing their job either. Their job is not. Go read their mission statement and then see how much they're lying about it. They're all a bunch of liars. All of them are a bunch of liars, and they're all going to get called out one by one.
Yeah, because they even talk about, if you have a corruption to expose, to push for, I think it is, whatever it is.
If you have a corruption, if you have a public corruption and you have a public servant committing corruption, expose it unless it's family court and child predator services, then we don't get involved. Well, they're not an entity unto themselves. They're a constitutionally non-protected constitutional entity, and they're doing everything illegal, so they need to be treated as such, criminals that they are.
I agree 100%. So anyway, I'm going to leave a track mark of exactly what is going on, and then I'll go back to where I left off. So this family that has my children right now, okay, my two oldest children, they did this to my first husband's family as well, okay? They got away with it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. They put my children's grandparents in jail for 12 years.
What?
Yes.
How old are these grandparents? How old were they when they?
These grandparents they've died.
Oh my God.
The kids were just young. My husband would have been 8 at the time, so there was a bunch of the kids, and 2 of his siblings actually got adopted into this woman's family. Okay. Now, going from there, it's unbelievable. The medication that I was on when I came home from the hospital was OxyContin, oxymorphine, and oxycodone. All 3 prescribed at the same time.
Oh my God.
So she walks into my house and she came with paperwork. And she says, "Liz, just let me help you. Let me take the children and take care of them while you get healed." Now, me being medicated, not really knowing anybody else to help, not, haven't even realized really what I was doing because of the medication I was on.
Obviously.
She said, "This is not anything to do with custody. I'm not taking your kids away from you. You will be able to see them anytime you want to."
Well, first of all, who is the freak doctor that would give you 3 antidepressant, mind-altering drugs like that in a row like that? That's a lot of medicine right there.
That's 3 narcotics.
3 narcotics. That's insane.
It's one of the highest pain meds.
My God. I mean, my God.
I was in a lot of pain. My leg was upside down backwards in my lap.
Well, I get it, but still. Okay.
Yeah, that was way too medicated, I'm telling you. But That's besides the point. We're working on that with another attorney and getting to the bottom of why I was on so much medication and the fact that I lost my kids because of all this. Anyway,
It's just sickening. It's sickening.
so she walks in and she knew, okay, now she did this to my kids' grandparents before, so it's been a cover-up ever since 20 years ago. This has been being covered up, and nobody did anything about it, and they got away with it. They put my mother-in-law, my first husband's mom, in jail, in prison, for 12 years for something she never did. She was on the Megan's Law, and she died.
How horrible.
You can't even imagine. Even like when I first found out that she was on the Megan's Law when my kids were little, I victimized this woman thinking that she really did do this stuff. You know, you can't go to jail for something you didn't do. You can't be on the Megan's Law for something you didn't do. And I told people not to trust their kids around her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I made this woman's life, if I may say so, hell
Good.
on earth, and did not realize what I was doing could come back and tenfold get me, which it did. Because now this woman, even though she said that this was not anything to do with custody, this was only guardianship so she can put the kids through schools and doctors until I show improvement and might be able to walk again or whatever. Well, I recouped.
How so unfair.
Okay, so I was seeing my children. I was literally having Christmas pictures done with this woman. You know, I even called her mom because my mom died. It was like she was a family member to me. She was there. But it got to the point where she was letting me see my kids anytime I wanted to. She pushed me around in my wheelchair, everything. But I told the doctors and everybody I was not going to sit there and be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. My kids will not see me in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. So I pushed myself and I started to walk.
Wow.
It was not long after I showed improvement and tried to start walking that false allegations started, and it was not on me at first. At first, it was my sister-in-law's boyfriend that supposedly molested and raped my children, my two oldest. And now that got her out of the picture of my children, okay, which is their biological aunt. So he proves that he did not do this. And as soon as he proved he did not do it, then he turns around, oh no, it wasn't him, it was my mom.
Wow, what a huge difference. So it was either so first it was a man, now it was a woman. Wow,
Exactly.
Sounds logical to me. Oh my goodness.
The false allegations that I've been accused of, you can't even imagine.
Oh, you're talking to me.
I would be the biggest monster in the world.
You're talking to me.
It went from neglect, unfounded, abuse, unfounded, indecent assault, unfounded, molestation, unfounded, rape, unfounded, rape, tied, and gagged, unfounded. And then last year, she said, I took the kids to a strip club, watched men rape them, then tried to kill them.
And this is now
every single year a new one.
So how many years is it, Elizabeth? How many years is it since you've and are you having visits with them at least, or nothing at all?
No,
not even visits.
She will not let me see them. CYS says, or CPS, whatever you want to call them.
Child
Their hands is out of it, because when this paper was signed, it was in fact a custody consent form. She lied to me to get me to sign that.
Yeah. Okay. I warn everybody.
The medication I was on, I didn't, okay, long story short, you just don't know what you're doing on that kind of medication.
Well, obviously, that's a neither here nor there, and this is barbaric. I mean, this is utterly barbaric. The whole thing. Did you ever have an evidence-based trial in your state? Because Pennsylvania, we're going to be doing some exposing of the state of Pennsylvania. There are very bad states out there. There is New York. There is West Virginia. There is Pennsylvania. There is Minnesota. I mean, everybody's here right now that is part of. It's all over. But I mean, I can't say one is worse than the other. These are some lunatic states. I don't know how these judges. I sit here and I literally marvel that these judges sit in these positions of power day in and day out. First of all, I'd be bored with the job after a while. I'd be like, okay, I've had enough of being an asshole. I can't do this anymore. I mean, there's just a limit of how a person could be this much of a jerk. okay? And watching family after family as they completely destroy homes. But it's just mind blowing. I've court watched, okay? I have seen children literally hysterically crying while judges are saying things like, I love doing adoptions. And the child is kicking and screaming and begging them to stay with their parents. I've seen this. I've witnessed this. My heart breaks. And this is why I do what I do. It is utterly insane. But Pennsylvania, there is a huge amount of people in Pennsylvania. And I'll hook you up with those groups if you're not already hooked up with them.
I have one advocate, Lori Nicholson, in Erie, which is not far from me.
Yeah, Lori's great. Lori's great.
Next week. So she's already reached out to me. And there's a couple other people that I've seen was also, which you had put up, like different states that this would be the advocacy use and stuff.
Yes.
And I'm going to be reaching out to more of them as well.
We have big plans. Let's just put it this way.
We was radio station last night, and I mean, I just poured out. I left nothing out whatsoever. I let everybody know the truth.
It has to be. It has to be, and that's why I say I cannot work with fear. Unfortunately, I cannot work with fear because fear isn't going to get anybody anywhere. But I do, we do. Obviously, we use wisdom, but we cannot allow this to continue. This is psychopathic behavior. These
there's
judges.
There's a lot of bias going on, a lot of conflict of interest and bias going on in my case, because the woman that has my two oldest children is very, very good friends with the judge that has been covering all this up since day one. Like, she took that paper that I signed to CPS. They closed the case. So then she took that paper to this judge, and this judge signed her name to it as if we was in court. We was never in court. It was done in my kitchen on my table. There was no dates on it whatsoever, only my name, and she signed her name and then a witness name, and that's all that was on that paper when she took it. Okay, so we was never in court. That should never be a court document whatsoever. The judge was not there to see what kind of situation I was in, what if I was on medication. She didn't know anything,
The bottom line comes down to, Elizabeth, the bottom line comes down to is that these judges are giving children to genuine drug dealers and drug addicts. If you protect them from drug dealers and drug addicts, they hold something against you for doing the right thing. They hold something against you for doing the wrong thing. They place the children where they shouldn't go. They take the children from where they should be. So there is no rhyme or reason to the decisions that they render. The decisions that they render are nothing short of negligent. Okay, they render irresponsible judgments, period. And then it's a dominoes effect of you trying to get yourself back out of the mess that they've caused. Okay, they do not do anything in an articulate, documented, evidence-based, fashion that is supposed to be our justice system. They do things in a system that is clear. We've made it clear nationally that this is a racket. It is a game. It needs to be beyond exposed. It needs to be ceased immediately. And I believe, I know that it's coming soon that these judges will be spending their years in jail cells. I have no question about that. There's so much that we're doing behind the scenes that we are gearing up to as a national, because it's a national issue and people have had it. Okay. And I say it over and over again. This is about the health and safety of our children and our country. Okay. They're placing families at risk, and it's going to affect them too, because their children one day will grow up, or their grandchildren, and they're going to marry families that they've abused, children of families that they've abused. And when children are abused in this manner, they do not grow up stable and normal. So, you know what I'm saying? Eventually, this affects everybody. There's not a person that this does not affect, including the idiots that are making these decisions. They're making these decisions because of the mighty dollar. However, it's going to bite them too. It's going to bite them too. And they are to be held accountable, and they will be. Because the country's not going to stand for this anymore at all.
Exactly. And that's the thing. In Pennsylvania, we've already taken down a Kids for Cash before.
Yes,
and I think that's what needs to be done everywhere, because they are literally selling our kids into murderous foster families and being abused for years. And I have proof. I have screenshots. Over 3,000 screenshots.
What I'm going to do.
January.
Well,
of foster
whatever
care
your,
abuse.
let me tell you something. What I'm going to do is, because when my editor gets this piece, this is going to get made into a 2-hour special, and it'll be showed all over.
Okay.
It'll be showing all over Long Island, northern New York, southern New York, all over California. And as we keep picking up pieces, we keep sending it out. And what's going to happen is anything that anybody wants to send me, we can have it pieced into the whole thing, and it is covered by a disclaimer, and it is covered under the laws, and there's nothing they can do about it. Too bad. Okay, because they're going to have to deal with, and I always say this, you'll have to deal with not only the wrath of God, but the wrath of Fran, and I don't play. I'm going to have to wrap you up, so if you have any few things to say, because I want to go over to Melanie a little bit, because hers is similar to yours with the
I will wrap this up real quick because it is taking a while. It's such a huge corruption and circle of just covering up. But what I wanted to say too was this judge has literally said that she needed 15 days to look into my case when the custody trial of my youngest child, which is now another child being born, that they took straight from the CPS took straight from the hospital because he had opiates in his system because I was prescribed opiates.
Oh my goodness.
During my pregnancy. So they took him at 3 days old out of the hospital, and so this judge same judge that filed that paper for my 2 oldest kids is now the judge on my youngest child's case and has another bias and conflict of interest because she is friends with the foster family on Facebook.
Yeah, you got pictures of her.
They're all connected, working together. The foster family and the woman that has my 2 oldest children are working together with CPS and the judge to make sure that I do not get my kids home. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. And this is in Fayette County, people. I don't know if I should say the judge's name or not. I don't want to go to jail for
what you're going to do is you're going to send everything to me. I'm going to present it all through the legal team, and we're going to see what we can expose, and we're going to expose it.
Okay.
I thank you for your story. I'm sorry for what you're going through. Like I said, we're all here to embrace you and to work with you with the advocates in your area. I'm actually going to be at the meet and greet in DC on the 21st. If you can come out, that would be great. I know Lori is going. So if you could, that would be fantastic, and definitely stay in touch with me. Okay.
If Lori's going, we can just go together. That would be great.
Yeah, there's a possibility. I would definitely touch base with her and see if there's availability to do that. That would be great. So thank you so much again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We'll go further with this. I want to talk to Melanie right now. Melanie Ledman. I know that we've had your story repeatedly told. We've done lots of lives, Melanie, and all that. But we'll tell everybody like where you're at right now, because they have so abused your children. They have so abused your family. They have violated all your rights. We are working with getting that federal lawsuit going for you, and potentially adding on a joinder for all the other victims in Minnesota. But tell everybody where you're at right now, because a lot of people are familiar with your story because we've done a few shots on you, so segments on you. What's going on?
Well, we had that court yesterday with CPS, and now they're wanting me to sign leases from medical records and me to take a psych eval again.
Can you bring your camera down a little bit? I think we're only getting the top of your head. I'm sorry. You're chopped off a little bit. Oh, there you are. I think that's there you go. That's better. Good.
Can you hear me okay though?
Yes, you're nice and clear. Go ahead. So they want you to take another psych eval. Right. How can they take some psych evals? I'd like them to take some psych evals because their decision-making process is completely insane. So when is the judge going to take a psych eval? When is this Lori, not lunatic, CPS worker, when is she going to take a psych eval? Or how about this? When are they going to take some moral evaluations?
Right. And I have the list right here, Fran. I got this yesterday. And when we had our first CHIPS hearing, our first CHIPS case, they had all the same stuff listed the first time, which was 7 years ago, where they had all kinds of recommendations where we're supposed to comply with medical regime and medications for Brandon and getting them the medical treatment that they need. And I'm supposed to make co-decisions with Brad, even though he doesn't talk to me.
Well, they want you to co-parent with an abuser, first of all, which is a violation of
Right.
your rights and domestic violence law, as well
And
as your ADA rights have been violated repeatedly. They've never given you one American Disability Act accommodation that is legally required under federal law in the United States of America. They have never done that. And then, if anything, all they keep doing is keep harming you further and further because they're violating all of your HIPAA and ADA.
Right.
I don't know how
And
that, I don't know.
the boys to take assessments too, and this is all being talked about without the involvement of their regular mental health professional / counselor. And it's very traumatizing to them because they've been disclosing for the last 10 years how they're being abused and not being listened to. And I really wish you would have been at the court yesterday because Brandon started breaking down. Brandon is 17 and a half, will be 18 in April. And he broke down, bawling his eyes out because he wanted all this to stop. He wanted it all to end.
Yeah.
Nobody was listening to him.
Yeah.
And
your boys have contacted me and all of the advocates, every last one. They've been extremely vocal about the fact that they only want to live with you and that they feel very abused and that their first day of school and days of the beginning of the school year were ruined because of CPS, Child Predator Services of Ulm, Minnesota, New Ulm, Minnesota. They said that they said that Brown County, they said that they did not get any sleep. They went to school tired and so tired and exhausted. That's how they started their school year. I want to know, this is what I want to know by these idiots in Brown County. I want to know who they're protecting when they're protecting their children from a protective mother. I want to know what's their MO in this, because they're harming your boys. They've put them in a flooded house. I mean, this is what they're using to say that is being done. Like, in other words, the reason why they're doing what they're doing doesn't even come close to what they're doing to the boys, if that makes any sense.
Right.
It's complete.
And it's not just the fact that they're ruining their school, the first days of school, but it's the first day of my son's freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
And the first day of my oldest son's first year of his senior year in school. So they're screwing up not only their grade school years of their lives, but now their high school years of their lives.
Yeah, yeah. And Minnesota is a horrendous state of abuse. And I noticed one thing I have to say, because like you guys know, I'm not gender specific, but Pennsylvania, there is no question, or rather, I'm sorry, Minnesota, there is no question that they're anti-mother. I can see it doesn't get any more clearer. We have a very articulated pattern of abuse that has been discovered, and it is a violent attack against mothers, and it's specifically against mothers who are victims of domestic violence, and they are re-abusing all of you, and it is so obvious. And I don't know what they think. Do they think that I'm lying? Because I'm far from lying. I'm very honest, and I have a federal lawyer that's going to sue the crap out of them in that state, and I can't wait.
Well, and what bothers me too is that they never even brought up Brad's conditions of the places where he is at with that black mold that was discovered when he had his house flooded with a broken pipe. And the 911 calls between Rosie and I, there were 6 calls. None of that was brought up in court yesterday, with Brand having 6 calls to try to get an ambulance for Brandon that could hardly breathe. His father was in Mankato, and it took us at least 6 times to try to get an ambulance. We finally got one to him. And when the EMTs got there, they said that he was pale and rushed him to the emergency room. And we have on audio the officer telling the dispatcher to shut up, that it's a game between me and Brad, instead of tending to getting my son some medical attention. None of that was brought up. And he still has these issues with his apartments and the house, which are very unsafe.
Okay, I want to say something about that right there, because of course all my red flags go off when I hear crap like this. In every state in the country, these people are all mandated reporters. I am in the state of New York. I know the rules, I know the laws, and I know that they're the same. They're the same in every state in the country. And if you have even as much as an idea that there's potentially some kind of harm being done to children, you are required by law, and it is a crime if you do not report that. And so by them saying it's a game, Okay, just by using that terminology that this is just a game. So basically ignore the abuse that's going on. That is, I mean, come on, people. How much more obvious does this abuse have to do? You have posted pictures of bruises all over these children. Okay. We've seen the pictures of within the house of the flooding and the mold inside his home. Okay, that's health and safety. That's actually medical health and safety risks right there. And they're saying that this is a game. So if it's such a game, why are they in the game board? Why are they playing the game then if this is such a game?
Right. And I went to the police station and I had asked them for the police report or an ICR from them. And on one of these sheets, it says that advocate for Melanie, and you know who I'm talking about, concern for the children, on-call human services, and the CPS gal that was on call for that weekend hung up the phone on the advocate, and she turned her phone off for an hour. And they claim that they went to the house to check on the well-being of the children. And my almost 18-year-old said that nobody went into the house. They just drove by, said everything's okay.
Now, let me tell you something. If I was living in that state, they wouldn't get past my front lawn. I'll tell you that right now. They would not get past my front lawn. They are intimidating bullies is what they are, and they would have their asses handed to them if I was living there. But I have to cut this short now. I mean, not short, but you have to be able to make this into a special, and I apologize to anybody else who actually, let me just get a quick Missy McDonald. I'm sorry. Let me just grab you real quick on here, Missy. Literally 5 minutes. If you can do this in 5 minutes, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. My case is here actually in Hampshire County, West Virginia. It's been going on now for 423 days, where my children were removed from me at a local courthouse. I've been charged with imminent danger of severe emotional abuse and parental alienation. There was domestic violence in the marriage as well when I filed for divorce. I wanted to share some audio as well, but if we're time constrained, that's fine, Fran. But
well, if you have something, do you have something that you go ahead and why don't you show the audio? Audio is really good, and we can add. Okay. We can have them edit it.
What had happened was, I'll give you a background. My youngest daughter was having some major behavioral issues that was not normal to her whatsoever. The night that I caught her trying to electrocute herself and jump out of her bedroom window, I contacted the professional that we had been talking with. She says, start recording her, do whatever you can to catch to see what she's doing. This was actually the night, I don't know how well you can hear it, but let me start playing it.
This is just audio, it's not visual?
Yeah, it's not even funny. Oh. No, I said to bed. No, it's fine. It's right here. You're in here. You don't need the thing. You've got the AC on. Quit, Des. I don't know if you all caught the last thing. That was a big thing that I questioned why she even brought that up, because she jumped down off of her bed. She goes, fine, I'll kill myself. She continued through that entire night, running through the house, locking herself in different rooms, hiding, and everything else. Well, say the least, the professional told me to take her to the local emergency room. When we went to the local emergency room, they had labeled her with conduct disorder and wanted to send her out to a facility for an evaluation to see what was going on. What happened was we get out there, sign all the paperwork, found out she became a patient actually of the bully, was not there for an evaluation after I'd signed the papers. However, I turned around and showed them the video showing what's going on. This is what I had asked her. See if it'll play here. Because I died. Wow, what did he do? That was what I was questioning. Why was he rubbing on her leg? What was he doing? You know, if this child brought this to me, there was some significance to that. That's why I was asking what was going on. Well, however, They turned around, contacted CPS. CPS had claimed that I had coached these girls, basically to make a long story short, coached these girls to saying that their father had sexually assaulted them. An emergency temporary protection plan was put in place. They were saying that he was causing redness to the private region of these girls while he was on visitation. All kinds of stuff was made up. They were taken from me.
So hang on a second though. So they did admit that there was redness in the frontal area. I know we've talked about this, but just for those that don't know the story, they did admit that there was frontal red in the frontal area of your child while on visitation with the father. They admitted that, correct?
That's what the social worker, the caseworkers had put in the paperwork. What they had asked me was there anything that I had questioned pertaining to any of my other daughters? And I explained to them, I said, we had questions after I had filed for divorce of what was going on with my oldest daughter about redness between her legs.
Mm-hmm.
It was happening during the time that I was leaving my oldest daughter with my ex.
Okay, hold it right there. I just want you to hold it right there because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Okay, I just watched your daughter. I understand this. I know that I I don't know if she's on today, but I'm going to have her look at this. She will vouch for it. Okay. Matter of fact, I think I actually sent you her information, the licensed social worker who's also a psychotherapist. Okay. Now, right away, the child's got redness. They're admitting it. It's during visits with the paternal influence. And then on top of it, she's acting all out of sorts, there's a difference between kids act up, they do these things, okay? They don't want to go to sleep at night, but then there's this other thing that I'd be very concerned about with the committing suicide portion, okay? Because they can't register what's happening to them. Now, what is their logic? Even if you were lying about this, let's pretend you were nuts and you were lying about this. You're not a concerned mother. There's redness in the genital area, but you're still lying. For whatever reason, they're going to say that you're lying, even though that there is concerns there that any normal parent would be concerned about. What is their logic of taking these children away from you completely? And what is their logic when they're supposed to be an anti-abusive children organization, which we know that they're not, okay? Do they not understand that social science research has proven it, okay, over and over again, that these children's ACEs go up so high that it's as bad as, if not worse than, PTSD of a veteran in war, okay? That what is their logic? And you don't even have to answer that. I'll leave that for the viewing audience to just think about that for a minute. And these idiots that are watching that are child predator service caseworkers, do you not realize the damages that you're causing on these children because a mother was concerned about something that we just by these short little excerpts that you just played, okay? And the proof that they even said that there was redness in the area is enough for anybody to be concerned. And I think that needs to be just basically left right there. Because the abuse that they've put your family through and you, okay, again, we're talking about another multi-million-dollar lawsuit. It is disgusting. They can never repay the time that you've spent without your children. They can never repay the damages that they've done to your children and your families. They can never repay that. And the only thing I think that will give some satisfaction besides the return of the kids so that they can go through a healing process is that each and every one of these losers end up in jail for the rest of their lives. Because you should not ever touch children and families. You should not ever touch children and families. And these decisions that they're making, I'm going to emphasize it, cannot be anything short than irresponsible.
Amen. I wanted to share a couple more things if you have the time. This was actually, I didn't know at the time when the children were taken from me where they were going. I was believing that they were going to go to like foster care.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't let me know where they were going. However, they were saying that I had made up the domestic abuse in the home, believing that this had never happened. However, I have, to the contrary, he actually admitted in open court. This is what had happened here.
Right, you have it documented in the record by his own mouth. I mean,
yeah,
but you made that up too. But that's.
I don't believe that anything of this happened with him.
Well, just know that this show is going to Nassau County, Long Island, and you're going to have an overwhelming audience that's going to get to see your stories. So just know that.
It's amazing. Yeah, I'm glad we're finally getting a voice to expose all of this.
Okay, I got to wrap it up in 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, here it was showed real quick.
They all use a gel.
I'll stop it there. But yeah, that's what he ended up doing.
Now, did you actually kick him? Is that part true that you kicked him, or?
Yeah, after he hit me, yeah, I nailed him.
After he hit you, so it was actually the other way around.
Yeah, because what had happened was that.
Okay, because I'm gonna have to wrap it. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna turn this around. Hold on a minute.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, well, everyone, we have more, but we can't show them all. We will do another part of this. We're going to have this edited for TV. If anybody wants to send me any evidence of anything that you have that you would like pieced into this episode, we're going to have a special run on this one. Please feel free to. I also would like to tell you all to, go to the Facebook page. We do have a new page right now that Rhonda McFetridge has worked so hard on. Basically, it's advocates across the United States of America, and it's a wonderful group. It's Punished for Protecting. It is actually, what do you call it? Our new advocacy networking group. I'm actually going to show you a picture of it if I can pull that up here real quick for you guys. So it's Punished for Protecting, our National Advocacy Networking Group. It is on Facebook. You can find it under Punished for Protecting Advocacy Networking Group. On this group, which is really great, you will see every single state in the country, and you will see where Rhonda did just a fantastic job of on here, where you'll see where you can find any advocates in your area. So we start from A to Z, even though we don't have any Z states, but you know what I mean. She did it here, and then all the advocates and chapter leaders are listed all the way down the map. So go ahead and join that. As you guys know, it is very difficult for me to answer every single email I get. They're just going constantly. So what I need you guys to know is, number one, it's not personal. Please do not feel bad in any way that I cannot respond to everybody. You will more likely get a copy paste with instructions to follow. And we do public meetings. We're trying to do these public meetings weekly. It's really a wealth of information for you to get onto these public meetings, so we can help you in any manner that is available to you through our organization. I will be at the October 21st. I'm doing a meet and greet in Washington, D.C. The best way to contact me then will be via Facebook inbox messaging, just to find out where I am, and I will be showing it on the Facebook page, so you can take a look there as well. That's about the limit to the responses I'll be able to give you. But during the meet and greet, what I would like to do is, I will be doing, actually, with a small team, we will be doing live interviews either in front of the White House, or if it's rain or something like that, we will be informing you of which hotel nearby. It'll be very close to the White House, and we will be doing the interviews live there, as well as a meet and greet. So I really look forward to meeting you guys in person and talking about different ways that we can continue this work as we continue to nationally expose the abuses of these judges and child predator services. And as I continue to do these, telling your stories is really one of the best ways to put a stop on the damages that they're doing to our families. As you can see, after story after story after story, the damages are far and wide, and the damages have a logarithmic effect on society overall. it is a dominoes effect, and it goes into years, and it is terrible. But we are very grateful to the returns of children that we're seeing, to the judges that are being held accountable. And just know that we are working systematically to do major lawsuits. And we do have a goal to do national lawsuits. It may not have been done before, but you know, there's many things that have happened in life. Like people didn't think that we would have an airplane in the sky, right? So we will continue to forerun what we need to forerun until this entire system is imploded in on itself. And yes, I'm sorry to anybody that doesn't want to see judges in jail. We do. We want to see them in jail where they belong. You see, if you cause treason, if you do treasonous acts and you abuse authority, you belong in jail. And these child predator services as well, they are not immune. Trust me when I tell you, these people are not immune. And we're going to make sure that each and every one of them are held accountable for the abuse to our families. Also know this, school is for education, not for counseling. Okay? Beware of them trying to counsel your children in any way, shape, or form. Sign nothing. Sign nothing. Always get advice. Never do anything when you're feeling stressed or under duress, or if they're intimidating you or forcing you to do something. Never, ever have them make you admit to something that you've never done. Okay? These people are not your friends. They want your children. They're sick. They're predators. They're evil. They're thieves. And they're out for money. Your children are pawn to them. Your children are some sort of an asset to them. Okay, so take it very seriously. I don't do this show because I have nothing else to do. I do this show to expose the national crisis that's happening in our country. And I thank each and every one of you for not being afraid, because we can't work with fear, but we can work with faith. And we can work with those of you that are moving forward to end this atrocity. Thank you again. And if you want to be on our show, go to punishedbeingaaparent.com. Thank you again. Have a great afternoon.